Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. In February 2025, the Waisenhaus Resort in Germany hosted the inaugural Freestyle Chess Grand Slam. This tournament attracted some of the world's top players, including world number 1 Magnus Carlsen, the newly crowned world champion Gukesh Damaraju, Fabiano Caruana, and the rising star from Germany, Vincent Keymer. This event featured an innovative format. It is called Chess 960, also known as Fischer Random Chess, in which the starting positions of the back rank pieces are randomized before each game. This format aims to eliminate the advantages of extensive opening preparations, emphasizing players' improvisation skills and creativity. Now, at the time I'm recording this video, this tournament has already ended, and the champion is Vincent Keymer. It's actually kind of unexpected because he is not considered as the strongest player in this whole group. You see, we have Magnus Carlsen. He is definitely considered as a stronger player than Vincent is, at least in standard chess. But this is just a little bit different from standard chess. Fischer Random Chess, it just simply, as I've said, emphasizes more of players' improvisation skills and creativity instead of just all of these opening preparations. Now, at the beginning of the tournament, Magnus actually struggled a little bit, losing 3 out of his 5 rapid games and winning only 2 of them. However, though, as the event progressed, he gradually came back and regained his form and managed to qualify for the semifinals. And in the semifinals, Vincent Keymer delivered an outstanding performance, defeating Magnus Carlsen and securing his spot in the finals, and Magnus was eliminated from title contention, but still he is fighting for 3rd place. Meanwhile, Fabiano Caruana, he faced a grueling match against Uzbekistan's Grandmaster Javakir Sindarov. After nearly 8 hours of intense play, Fabi emerged victorious in the tiebreaks, setting up a final clash with Keymer, meaning that Vincent Keymer and Fabiano Caruana are fighting for 1st place. They are fighting for the title as well as lots of money. The successful organization of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam actually just highlights the diversity and innovation in chess tournaments. The random starting positions, they challenge players' adaptability and creativity while reducing the impact of deep opening preparation on results. And I think this is the advantage that Vincent Keymer actually has. Probably in classical and in standard chess, his openings are not the best, but when it comes to these kinds of, like Fischer Random Chess, he has greater creativity than all of the other players. He always finds the best setup in these kinds of weird positions, and that is why he is playing extremely well. Maybe this is his advantage, however, there are actually some other stories. There are some ongoing disputes between FIDE and the Freestyle Chess organization regarding the tournament's branding. Additionally, due to tensions with the FIDE president, Magnus Carlsen has actually announced that he will no longer participate in FIDE events. And I sincerely hope that this situation can be resolved amicably. And so this tournament has already ended, but looking ahead, looking into the future, the Freestyle Chess Tour will continue with more global events, and the next stop will be in Paris this April, where even more top players are going to participate. Now, I've actually said a lot about this tournament, about the winner Vincent Keymer, and some of the backstories that has some of the stories that has happened recently. Now, let's jump into the games. But before that, I'm going to quickly introduce this tournament using this homepage. So the Waisenhaus Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour is the first of 5 events of multi-million-dollar Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour, and we have these players, 10 players participating, and I think you guys all know who they are. They are all extremely strong players, the world top players. Here we have the schedule, the knockout, and the prize fund. As you can see, the money is just so high. And for first place, it is $200,000, and it's just an extremely high price. So basically, they all want to fight for first place. Who doesn't want to get so much money? But anyways, the winner is Vincent Keymer. Here is the result. Well, this is actually the result of the round robin stage, but this is nothing important. But here we have the Grand Slam, the knockout stage, where we can see that in the finals, Fabiano Caruana versus Vincent Keymer. We have Vincent Keymer as the winner. They play 2 games, and Vincent is 1.5 out of 2. A great score, and let's see how he get that, how he became the champion. And this is the first game in the final between these 2 players. We have Vincent with the white pieces, and let's see how he played. And as you can see, all of the pieces on the back rank are just like not where they should be, and this just looks somehow like unadaptable to us. But I mean, for grandmasters and for someone especially like Vincent Keymer, who is someone who has a great sense like of creativity and is really easy to adapt into all these kinds of things, he knows how to play, and he starts with c4. Now we have knight f6, knight f3, b6, b4. Both sides are like opening up the diagonals for their own bishops. We have c5, bishop e5, so developing the bishop and attacking the queen. Here we have d6, of course, very logical, and then bishop takes f6. We had the first exchange, and then e takes f6, opening up this file for the rook. We have queen takes h7, gobbling up a pawn, but then we have knight g6. Of course, Fabi knows that he is just not simply giving up a pawn, but he is simply trying to get faster in development and trying to get this queen somehow trapped inside. Here we have e3 played. So white's idea is basically to go d4 at some point, or just simply to develop this bishop. Here we have c takes b4, so black is winning back the pawn. Bishop e2 was played, and here Fabi actually made a first mistake here. I mean, in the actual game, this just looks like a really normal move. But then we have rook c5. This is considered as a mistake by the computer, and the reason is that, well, in the game, Vincent just shows the best reply with knight g3 first, gaining control of all of these squares, preventing the rook from ever trying to get to the h file to trap the queen, and also just at the same time developing the piece. We have queen c7 here, d4 was played. Now you see that this rook is somehow misplaced here, and it is now getting kicked by the pawn. It needs to move away, and Fabi plays rook a5, trying to tickle the a2 pawn, but Vincent just simply defended with rook c2. We have bishop c6 developing the bishop, threatening to go bishop a4 here. And if you guys don't know, but in the Fisher random chess, both sides can still castle their king, but it's just like a more interesting way. And in the game, we have short castle. Isn't this just something that looks really like interesting? Normally, we don't castle our king in this way, but in Fisher random chess, we do it like this. So castling the king, getting the king to safety, also running away from this really deadly pin here. We have rook a3 played, another mistake by Fabi. Well, the reason is that he is just simply moving too many moves of this rook instead of just developing his own pieces, getting the king to safety, because now he is just simply wasting 2 tempos, or actually 3, because he moved rook c5 first, rook a5, and then rook a3, but this is just simply a really bad idea, and his bishop, the king, are still like not where they should be. Here, white decides to go h4. Vincent found the best move, launching attack on the king side immediately. We have bishop a4 attacking the rook, but simply white just goes back. Maybe rook b2 is slightly better because it still keeps an eye on the a2 pawn, but Vincent decides to go back, which is not bad. Here we have a5, so pushing the pawns. h5 was played. Vincent is pushing his pawns on the king side, attacking the knight. Knight goes back. We have d5. Now suddenly, Black just realizes that White is threatening to go knight d4 on the next move, and who knows where this knight will jump to. Maybe knight f5, maybe knight c6. All of these light squares are extremely weak, and Black's dark square bishop suddenly just looks like it's useless. It is being blocked by its own knight and also its own pawns. Here, White is just much more active, all of the pieces. Black decides to gobble up a pawn, but this doesn't do anything because he is just way too slow in development. Here, Vincent jumps directly into d4. We have queen d7. We have rook a1, offering a trade of rooks. Well, Fabi here decides to go rook d2, rejecting the offer. But then h6 is coming. Vincent is just breaking through on the king side. G takes h6 was played. But even though Black is right now up 2 pawns, that is a lot of material. But still, we see that Black has a really ugly pawn structure. But most importantly, this just useless bishop on f8. Also, this really weak king, this e8 rook is also just simply blocked by its own pieces. Simply, Black's pieces are just not coordinating with each other. In the game, not Fabi, but it's Vincent's turn, and he decides to play bishop h5, another excellent move here. And his idea is to take on f7 on the next move with the bishop to trap the rook. Because here, if you take with a queen, the main problem is that you cannot trap this rook. But if you take with the bishop h5, and you're threatening to take it with the bishop on the next move, you get to take the rook on the very next move as well. So that is a very deadly threat, and Fabi in the game defends it with, well, not defends it, but he actually starts to sacrifice his pieces with the rook d4, because this d4 knight is just such a monster. It is gaining too much control of all of these really important squares. And most importantly, if White manages to take on f7 on the next move, not only does White attack the e8 rook, but also threatens to go knight e6, which is even more deadly. So somehow Fabi is just forced, and he took on d4, but now simply this is just helpless. E takes d4, White is up material, but also has a much better position. Black decides to go bishop b3 to try to take the c4 pawn, but that is just simply useless because now there's queen d3 back. Vincent is not even worried. Like, he is not even in a hurry to take on f7, because that might lead to some tactics with knight d5 maybe, and Black gets to pin the bishop and the queen, and it's probably unclear. But instead, in the game, Vincent decides to go for the most calm way, and he plays queen d3. Attacking the bishop, this is just simply brilliant chess. We have a4 kind of force defending the bishop, but now we have rook fb1. This is somehow like White is even threatening to take on b3 at some point. Black plays knight c8. We have knight f1 and threatening to go knight d2 to take the bishop. White is having a really clear plan, and it's kind of like an unstoppable plan. We have b5 played in the game, but simply you just take on b5. That's a free pawn. Queen c7 was played, but I think already at this point Fabi is losing ideas. His pieces are still just uncoordinated, and as you can see in this whole game, this bishop hasn't moved a single step. In the game, we have knight e3, but maybe rook c1 is slightly better, wins faster, but knight e3 is also fine. We have knight b6, attacking the d5 pawn, but now there's simply rook c1 attacking the queen. Queen goes to b7, and bishop f3 defending the pawn. f5 was played, a nice try, but here Vincent just simply takes the pawn. And finally, this bishop gets to move and plays bishop g7, attacking the d4 pawn, but this is just simply too late. Queen f4 was played, defending the d4 pawn as well as attacking the d6 pawn at the same time. Black played bishop f8 back, and as you can see, this bishop is just so unlucky. It finally gets to move out, but then it is just forced to get back. Bishop f8, rook c6, blockading this diagonal of the queen, and here after a3, this brilliant move by Vincent, rook takes d6, and it is just game over. Because if Black takes with the bishop here, White gets to take, and if you blockade with knight d7, there's queen takes b4. White is just up too many pawns and is going to be trapping this bishop. So White is winning. What a nice move by Vincent. Rook d6, and in the game, Fabi played knight d7, but after rook a6, another brilliant move. Now, this is just game over because lots of threats are coming. d6, queen takes f7 are all unstoppable. So Vincent won this first game, but there's still another game left, and he needs to at least not lose it, because if he loses the second game, then this meant that he will be playing a tiebreak with Fabi, because they have 1 point each. So this is the last game. I already played 2 moves, but this time Fabi is with the white pieces, so this means that Fabi has more chances to go fight for a win, and Vincent is with the black pieces. So again, we have the back rank pieces in a different place or move order compared to this one. As we can see, it's like this, and here it is different again. Fabi decides to play d4, and Vincent plays f5. This is the best move, the best setup that black has in this, well, opening considered in Fisher Random Chess. Black's best reply here is to go f5. And as you can see, Vincent Keymer is just finding all of these best setups. He knows what it will evolve into. He knows what the position will evolve into after a couple of moves. And he just found the best move again, f5. And the idea is really simple. After white develops the pieces, he goes d5, pushing another pawn. We have f3, another pawn, e5. And the main point is that if white takes on e5 as played in the game, black is not going to take back with a rook, but instead have this really nice move, knight hg6, developing the knight as well as at the same time attacking the pawn, threatening to recapture it with the knight. So this is a really creative idea, basically. In the game, f4 was played, so it looks like Fabi is able to defend the pawn, and Vincent is just simply down a pawn. But is that so? In the game, knight h4 was played, and suddenly you just realize black is attacking this g2 pawn, and it's not that easy for white to defend it. Because if you go knight e3 to defend the pawn, there's d4 to kick this knight away, and after the knight moves, you lose the g2 pawn anyways. So in the game, Fabi decides to play instead a move that is also not so good. The best move for him is actually to go knight d2 to develop the pieces, and after you go knight takes g2, rook f1, and you just get this knight to f3, d4 at some point. At least this knight is better on this way than it is on e3, because once the knight gets to e3, what's next? So development is the most important thing here for white. Just give the pawn back. But in the game, Fabi just got a little bit greedy, and he played this c4 move. Now the reason that I said that he is greedy is because now in the game, well, Vincent, he didn't play knight g2, which would have been the best move here. But after knight g2, Fabi's idea is to go bishop a4 to attack this rook. And here the best move for black is actually to go c6 to blockade. Here, rook d1 is Fabi's idea. This rook is not trapped, but it is going to run away and put a lot of pressure in the center. This is basically Fabi's idea. And he might just thought that Vincent will go knight g2. But instead, Vincent found a more creative way to solve this problem and played just simply take the pawn. Here we have bishop a4 anyways, but Vincent found the best move once again, c6 to blockade, and threatening to go b5 even. In the game, we have e4. So Fabi, he is now, well, both sides have the same pawns, and he is now breaking through in the center. We have g5. So Vincent is breaking through on the side. We have knight takes f5, taking a pawn, but already at this point, black has a slight initiative because these pawns in the center for white are somehow just blockading their own diagonals and files. You see these pawns just blockade the queen's diagonal, the bishop's opportunities. So these pawns, they might seem pushed really high up the board. They have their pros, but also they have their cons. In the game, Vincent took on f5, and after takes, queen takes f5, it is with check, very importantly, and here Fabi decides to play bishop c2 back. The bishop retreats and attacks the queen takes f4, and bishop e3 was played. So of course, at this point, taking on f4 is not a good idea because after g takes f4, black is now up a pawn, and most importantly, the queens are off the board, and this meant that the chances for white are really small. And here Fabi needs to fight for a win because even if he had a draw, it is just no difference for him. He needs to win in order to have to go into the tiebreak and maybe in the tiebreak win against Vincent, and then he is the first. So he needs to keep the queen on the board. He played bishop e3, developing the piece as well as attacking the queen. Queen goes back, queen f7, and knight g3. So Fabi is developing his pieces. This is a slight improvement that he had compared to the first game where he just didn't develop his pieces. In the game, Vincent played knight g6, developing his knight as well as at the same time attacking the e5 pawn. We have bishop takes g5. Fabi is again starting to take all of these pawns. Takes. We have a pair of bishops off the board, but this e5 pawn is really weak and it could fall at any point. In the game, black decides to play queen f4. Vincent is now forcing a trade of queens, because if white just rejects this offer and plays something like queen h5 here, well, there's just rook e5 and black is gonna be up a pawn. So that is why queen takes f4 is somehow forced, but once the queens are off the board, this is much more likely going to end in a draw for black. And this is good news for Vincent, because the more simple the position turns into, the easier he will make a draw. Knight takes f4, and even at this point, he has a better position. White's pawns are just way too separated and also too weak. Here in the game, well, Fabi decides to castle queenside, and knight takes g2 was played. Vincent said, okay, I'm going to gobble up a pawn first, and rook g1 was played, and now I'm just going to go back here, and I'm attacking your rook as well as the bishop at the same time. Knight takes f5 was played, and it just seems that Fabi is kind of just a little bit worried because he knows that if he just goes rook de1, black will just happily trade as many pieces as possible, and maybe even go queenside castle here, and this is gonna likely end in a draw. So Fabi, of course, doesn't want to allow that to happen, and instead he decided to create more counterplay by playing knight f5. But this is just way too risky because he is sacrificing material. Knight takes d1 was played, and after rook g7, so his idea is actually to sacrifice a full rook and go into full attacking mode, trying to create as many counterplay as possible, threatening to go knight d6 on the next move, threatening the rook, as well as threatening rook b7 checkmate. So this is also pretty creative, but well, in the game, Vincent made his first mistake as well. He played queenside castle. But the best move here is actually to go a5, but this is just a move that is so hard to see. Now, the main point is that if you go knight d6, there's king a7, and if you take on e8, there's rook takes e8, and after king takes d1, for example, bishop d5, let's say, black is probably still going to be slightly better, but I don't know, at least black is not going to lose at this point, and I think that is something that Vincent definitely wants. And here also, just to show that after here, king a7, rook b7 is no longer checkmate because you just go king a6, and white is running out of checks and down material. But in the game, Vincent, instead of playing that, decides to go queenside castle, which is not losing, of course. Still, the position is slightly better for black, but this is not the easiest way. Knight d6, king b8, now giving back the piece. And we have this endgame where it is same colored bishop. Vincent is up a pawn right now, but he has a double pawn, as well as a really weak pawn on the h-file. Basically, the position is just equal. In the game, bishop d5 was played. Vincent is now getting his bishop to a really solid square. It is being defended by its own pawn, but at the same time, it is also defending its own pawn. In the game, rook takes h7 was played. Fabi basically couldn't do anything. He just takes the pawn, but then rook takes e5. Black is up a pawn, and at this point, I think this is just a dead draw. Vincent knows how to draw this game, and they played for a couple of more moves, h4. I mean, it's worth trying for Fabi because he does have this outside pass pawn, and it is same colored bishop, so maybe some chances. But for Vincent, a such strong grandmaster, he definitely knows how to hold. And in the game, rook e1 was played, threatening bishop f3. We have king d2 up, Rook h1, the rook just goes behind the pawn, trails the pawn, tails the pawn. And after h5, a couple of moves, king c3, rook h3, king goes back, and we have threefold repetition. Fabi knows that he cannot go for more, because if he goes for more, he might just lose this position, because if the king runs too far away, then his pawns might become a little bit weak here, and even rook d3 wins the bishop. So a draw is here the best result for Fabi, I think, but this just means that Vincent Keymer doesn't need to go into the tiebreak, but just wins. He just wins. He is 1.5 out of 2, and he is the champion of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Wiesenhaus. This is somehow a little bit unexpected, but we can just see how creative he is. He is a really creative chess player, doesn't really rely on chess openings, and I mean, if he is someone who really relies on chess openings, then probably at this point he won't be able to find all of these great replies, because Fischer random chess, basically, it has nothing to do with openings compared to standard chess. So, but anyways, again, congratulations to Vincent Keymer on winning the 2025 Wiesenhaus Freestyle Chess Grand Slam. And hope you guys enjoyed this video as well as these games. And thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!